Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Perpetual Chess. We have one of my favorite guests, just an unbelievable story, one of the more compelling stories that's been told in all these years of Perpetual Chess. And I will introduce him in just 1 second. Just, of course, wanted to give thanks to our sponsors, Chessable.com. In case you haven't heard, Maurice Ashley's popular series, Secrets of Chess Geometry, has a new edition coming out. There's always very creative tactics. Maurice works really hard on those courses, so be sure to check those out. And of course, if you sign up for Chessable Pro, be sure to link in the description. So as I mentioned, our guest this week, just an incredible story. He was featured on this podcast in episode 289 back in 2022. He shared the story of how chess had helped him turn his life around from being a convicted felon. At the time, he was in a part-time prison. Now he's fully free after spending a total of 26 years behind bars in some capacity. And he's hit the ground running. He's working full-time, has founded a chess nonprofit called Masters and Mentors, and he's released a biography called Time Alone: From Isolation to Transformation. I read it. It's dark at times. Our guest has been through a lot. It's also incredibly inspiring at times and brutally honest. If you think you're having problems in your life, this will give you some much-needed perspective. And our guest credits chess with a sort of divine intervention, in his words. I think he's shortchanging himself, the work he's done on himself, but we will discuss all this in due time. But first and foremost, I am excited to welcome back to the program Tony Ballard. Welcome, Tony.
Hey, thank you, Ben. I appreciate you having me back, man. It's been a long time, but it's good to see your face again.
Yeah, we chatted a few times, but it's good to reconnect and share this with everyone. And first and foremost, Tony, congratulations. I mean, what does it feel like after all you've been through, after all these years, to be rebuilding your life and a free man?
Man, it really feels great. It feels super great. I just can't explain how awesome it is. Ben, the thing about it is, like, everything that is happening in my life right now is everything that I've prayed for and I've received, and it's a whole lot. So, one of the things that I should have been praying for too is great management skills, because I have a lot of family, a lot of friends, loved ones, different job offers, support. It's just been tremendous, and it's been a great time. So yeah. I'm happy to be out of the correctional system. I'm not completely free because I still have parole to do, which is about 2 years. But yeah, it's been.
That's incredible. Yeah, and it's a testament. Tony was supposed to be in for longer, but was a good citizen, role model for other prisoners. So he's out now, and yeah, it's really an inspiring story. And we will return to that story. But so for listeners who have not heard our prior interview, so Tony, very rough upbringing in Tulsa, Oklahoma, also spent some time in California, got involved in drug dealing and gangbanging, I think it's fair to say, made some mistakes by his own admission, ended up in and out of jail a few times. Meanwhile, was gifted at school, gifted athletically, but ultimately your bad choices at the time brought you down, but you've managed to resurrect your life. Definitely recommend listeners go back and listen to that. And again, Tony credits so much of it to chess, probably too much to chess. And I want to start with chess because, Tony, you've talked and written so poetically about your love for the game and how the game has helped you with your long-term decision-making. But now you're free. You're super busy, a lot of demands on your time, trying to help people while you pull yourself up at the same time. So I'm just curious if you're getting any time for chess with what limited free time you have.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing about it is I just got done playing chess with a friend who was also incarcerated with me, who I mentored, who I taught the game of chess, and he become really good. And we just hung out a minute ago. We went to a local restaurant where they let us come in and set up the chess set, and we played chess. People stand around and watch us. So he's not been able to get a chance to play chess with, because my life has been hectic and has been busy. I don't work doing primarily chess things that much anymore. And that's simply because, when I was working with the gift of chess, all of my job related activities centered around chess, implementing chess programming, having chess tournaments, etc. But now I have a different job in order to pay the bills and survive out here in society. So I don't get an opportunity to play as much chess anymore, nor do I get as much opportunity to really study chess. But I do still have some chess friends that we get together from time to time, like we did today.
That's good to hear. Yeah. So Tony was the director of prison outreach for Gift of Chess. Gift of Chess, of course, being the nonprofit that was founded by Russell Makovsky, Tony's good friend, who listeners can also hear in the archive on the podcast not that long back, an amazing organization doing great work. And Tony recently did an interview with US Chess where you mentioned, unfortunately, that was a volunteer position and you've got to support yourself. So you had to give that position up, at least for the time being. So that's what Tony's referring to vis-a-vis the gift of chess. And he's also, of course, now trying to start up his own chess nonprofit, as we will talk about. But Tony, just to sort of tie a few bows on your biographical details before we return to chess. So you're based in Kansas now, correct?
Yeah, I'm in Wichita, Kansas, and I've been living in the state for about 30 years now. But yeah, I'm here in Wichita, Kansas. I did most of my time in all the different correctional facilities in Kansas. But it's a pretty big city, almost the size of Tulsa.
Okay. And as you wrote in your book, you went to barber school, received a license to be a barber, and now you're working for a company, I believe Paul Mitchell, is that right?
Yeah, so I went to Paul Mitchell School of Barbering, and while I was there, of course, I'm super focused on this craft, this trade, because it is a passion of mine that I picked up while I was incarcerated, and I've always wanted to be licensed and to do this as a profession because I realized that it would be fun and it wouldn't be a work or a job at all. So when I got to Wichita Work Release, I asked the program director at the school if they would accept me. They did. I did very well there. They looked at my work ethic and they offered me a job opportunity upon my graduation. And they've been supporting me along the way with being a barber instructor, getting my barber's license and all the training available. So it's been a blessing to be a part of the Paul Mitchell School of Barbering.
That's fantastic. And they're keeping you busy, as we alluded to. So it's great that you got to play with your friend. But one thing that comes up a lot on this podcast, Tony, is those of us who take our freedom for granted, and don't, may not appreciate all that we have at times. We do always say that, like, we have an overabundance of choices of how to spend chess time. There's so many chess books. There's chess YouTube alone has more content than you could ever consume by incredibly gifted players and teachers. And of course, there's the opportunity to play. LeeChess.org is totally free. Chess.com offers a bevy of free options. I know you were saying as we were trying to set up this call and going through some tech issues that you're not as computer savvy, but have you gotten into online chess at all? Again, with your limited free time?
Oh, yeah. I've been playing online chess since I actually got my job at the Gift of Chess. When I got my job at the Gift of Chess, I was thrust into the world of technology. I'm talking about having Zoom meeting, Google Meet, Microsoft Teams. And so technology, helped me or working with the Gift of Chess helped me with the different technology. And I also had a Lee Chess, chess.com account. And so I still play chess online. I play probably every night before I go to sleep. I'll have my phone and I'll just be laying in bed, just playing a, chess.com game with a random person around the world. So I just did that last night. But when I was talking about playing chess with a friend or in a tournament, like I used to all the time,
right?
24/7, seemed like in prison. But yeah, I play chess. It calms me down at night, man.
Yeah.
It calms me down. It gives me that peace. It helps to keep my mind in order, and it's something that is a part of my routine. Is to play a chess.com game, 5-minute game, 1 or 2 times before I go to bed at night.
Okay,
and, it's fun too because I share it with my girlfriend.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people, and you write very poetically about sort of the meditative power of chess, the ability that it provides for one to immerse oneself in it. And I know that's something you've imparted to prisoners that you mentor as well. But the flip side of that coin that a lot of us chess players might struggle with is chess tilt, or sort of raging when we lose. Sounds like, is that an issue for you at all, Tony?
Oh my goodness. Yes, it is. That's the reason why me and my buddy played today. He had been playing. He got out maybe a week before me. So he got his life in order and acclimated, got his routine set a lot faster than I did. And so when he came over the other day and we were playing, he kicked my butt. He left out of here with probably like a 2 to 6 wins. I would probably beat him 2 times. He won maybe 4, maybe 6 times. Whatever it was, it felt like a whole lot, and I didn't like it. And so I texted him like that next day, and I said, "I'm pissed." And I sent a mad face emoji. he hit me back real quick, like, what do you mean? I'm like, you kicked my butt yesterday. I can't wait to catch you again. So that's why we finally got together today, and I beat him 5-1. So,
All
uh,
right.
yeah.
That's sweet revenge. Yeah, I don't know if you've gotten a chance. I know, again, you discussed in our previous interview, and you've been fortunate to get the chance to play like Abhimanyu Mishra and Hans Niemann in some exhibition games. So I don't know if you've gotten sucked into like professional chess yet, but Magnus Carlsen, of course, the top dog, he made some headlines the other day. And the only time chess makes international, like non-chess world headlines is when something goes wrong, unfortunately. In this case, Magnus had a tough loss and like banged the table, which is really small potatoes and like, the range of poor sportsmanship. Like on a spectrum of poor sportsmanship, it's a small thing, but you try not to do it. But anyway, even Magnus, after all these years, after all his successes, when he loses a game, he couldn't control it and just banged the table and made headlines. So yeah, there's just no escape.
Yeah, he makes a lot of different headlines for different reasons, and whether choose the word genes or not, or
Yeah.
the table. That's Magnus. But hey, chess will absorb your thoughts like that, Ben. And you and I know it, and all the chess players around the world that's listening to this podcast, they can agree that we chess players, I'm reading this book now. It's called the Chess Psychology: The Will to Win, and in there it talks about being able to control your emotions because we really get absorbed with winning at all costs. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah, for sure. And we only played once or twice. I was pretty impressed with how you played. What do you think your chess strength is, Tony?
So, it's hard to tell, Ben, because in prison we all played one another. And so our true chess score rating is not compared against what we would play in society. But I would say, just being modest, about 1600.
Okay. Yeah, I would have said 18 from like the one game we play. And I know when you play
Yeah.
Russ, you hold your own against Russ, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure.
If you want
Yeah.
to take some shots at him, go ahead. I'm sure he'll.
That's another guy that, man, when we first met, we used to do all the pleasantries and talk nice and kind and all that. But when we start playing chess, all that went out the window. And I couldn't wait to talk to him on the phone again so I can kick his butt, man. But
That's great.
yeah,
Yeah.
I miss Russ and playing chess. We haven't played much since I actually started working, but that's something that I would love to get back. I'll go visit him in New York here soon, probably this June.
Excellent. Yeah. I know you mentioned New York fondly in your book, and I'm, a special place in my heart as a former resident as well. And you wrote it, you talked about the brick, the Judith Polgar, or sorry, it's Laszlo Polgar book, the famed tactic resource that ran roughshod using. I'm curious now if you've availed yourself of any new resources, like book wise, now that you've gotten out. I know you were able to take out books from the library in jail, so maybe that there's not as much new to you there, but I'm just curious.
So I still have all the different, not all of them, but I have a lot of books that I took with me from prison, and I have them right here, and I keep them in my little chess library. But I haven't gotten out. Like I just got out in April.
Right.
So, with buying furniture, getting my new apartment, car payment, training, on the job training, I haven't had much time to really do any chess things. And then, of course, I try to fit in organizing my nonprofit in there. So I haven't had a chance to really go check out any new chess books or do really a lot of different chess activities. But as my life slows down and I get into a routine, I will find those pockets of time where I can fit chess in, like I'm finding at night and today with my friend from prison.
Yeah. And you obviously had a lot of time to spend on chess previously and made great progress. I mean, you do write in the book about chess captivated you as a kid, but you had so much going on in your life. You write about your mother's struggles with addiction, in addition to all of the trouble that you eventually found yourself in. So even though it's like the seed was planted, but it didn't get a chance to really nourish and grow until you found yourself in prison. But I'm curious, Tony, like if you have a philosophy of what, like we always talk on this podcast, everyone wants to know how to get better at chess. Everyone wants to bring their rating up. And I feel like we've come to some shared consensus, but I'm just curious with your own pursuit of chess and with all the enthusiastic chess players that you've come across, if you have like a chess improvement philosophy that you've developed of your own, what do you think is most important?
The most important, what I would say my philosophy is one, do as many chess puzzles as possible. And then two, learn how to meditate and visualize and learn to become creative. A lot of chess players that I've met, they're very academic, straightforward. They don't have a real creative side to them. And I think some of the best chess players are those who have developed their creative energies and they know how to be creative. And I find my creativity through meditation. Meditating on moves, meditating on the game. And when I'm meditating, I'm understanding how I'm feeling in the moment. I'm seeing the pieces move around on the chessboard. I'm seeing my opponent. I'm looking at all the different aspects of the game, because even opponent's slight, twitch of his eye or how he moves his hand towards his knight, like he's going to move it, all those different things help me to, calculate a choice and decision what I'm going to do next. And so I weigh all those things in. Now, I don't know how that would be in the professional setting, but I do know that reading people is key in prison when you play chess.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I could tell that as you talk about, like when you said, I haven't played chess, and you're like, well, I play online every day. So there's some people who say like online is not real chess, and other people get sort of offended at that. But from that, I sort of pick up kind of what school of thought you're in. And there is something special about the human element, the face-to-face connection of playing someone.
Yeah, because see, we developed the statewide, national-wide intercontinental chess tournaments online. And we had developed teams, 4-man teams that were competing in these tournaments. One of the guys that was in prison with me was really good on the chessboard, but he had a lot of over the chessboard tactics, psychological tricks and games that caught up in, right? But when we played in this online chess tournament that was a national tournament, he didn't score very well for our team. That's because he wasn't able to use those over-the-board chess tactics that played out so well for him in the tournaments that we had here in prison.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's plenty of stories like that, like prior generation players. There's a certain former world champion who keeps getting beat online by young upstart grandmasters and then accuses them of cheating because it's a different game, sometimes. And I'm sure a few people have cheated, which is another thing you have to worry about when you play online that you can worry less about when playing in person. So, Tony, go.
I just want to add to that since we're having a conversation. So I was in prison with a guy. I'm talking about this guy, and I talk about him in the book. His real name is Big Bob. We call him Big Bob. He has a different name in the book, but this guy was big and he was intimidating, very intimidating. And so when I played him over the board, he would beat me majority of the time because of just his presence, right? He had done a lot of time, very violent nature. It was just different playing him over the board. But when we went to our cells and we would play, pawn 29, knight 22, and we would yell him out from cell, I would beat him the majority of the time because now those elements of, being in his presence over the board was not a factor in the game anymore.
Yeah. Well, when us like chess nerds, not playing people nickname Big Bob in jail. Like when we play, we are intimidated because someone might, they might bang the clock or something. We're not worried about some huge person who's in jail for, I don't even want to know. So that's a different level of intimidation for sure. Just to clarify what Tony was saying about like pawn 29. So Tony mentioned in his US chess interview, he's learned notation, which actually I want to ask him about in a second. But Tony was saying like when they were in jail, they didn't necessarily know notation, but they would play across the cells. So the way that they communicated was they just numbered all the squares and would say the piece and the number of the square that it landed on. And that struck me as like a very efficient, easy solution because I know some people struggle with the coordinates when they're learning later. And Tony, as I mentioned, I wanted to ask you about notation because another thing that you mention in the book is that you eventually felt like you had to teach yourself to notation so that you could learn from your games. Something, again, that comes up all the time on the podcast. Could you describe that evolution for our listeners?
Yeah. So it was really strange and really crazy because when I would check out these library books, I was in segregation when I first started wanting to improve my game. And so I check out these library books. Some library books were really old and some of them was new. And so when I looked at the chess notations, I had to figure it out for myself. But it was tricky. The reason was some of the chess notation would have P, K, or,
KN4. Yeah, I know where this is.
yeah, where the newer chess notation had a different letter now. It wasn't the same. So I had to learn that and I learned by reading the modern chess MCO,
Yeah.
modern chess.
Modern chess openings.
Yeah, modern chess openings. I would read that. I would really pick a opening that I saw that sounded pretty cool, like Rel Lupez, or Archangel, or the Dragon, Sicilian Dragon. Those type of openings really drew my eye because of what they, would say. But the Birds opening, it was just those different names really caught my eye. So I wanted to learn more about them.
Yeah. So eventually that old school notation you described is called descriptive. And yeah, a lot of dyed in the wool chess fans grew up on it. It was quite common when I was a kid. And I as the years have gone on, I'm less of a fan of it. And algebraic is the more commonly accepted one now, which is like pawn to e4. But again, the system you described that you and your fellow prisoners using sounded just as effective. So another question I had, Tony, you mentioned, obviously you've read a lot of chess books. They've had a profound impact on your development, but you've also read a lot of non-chess books that you mentioned. I'm curious if you have any recommendations in that realm.
Yeah, for sure. So some of the non-chess books that I've read that really touched my life and helped transform my life was 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. In that book, it talks about a paradigm shift where we look at certain things we can, like for me in prison, when I first got there, I looked at prison as a dungeon. I was in the worst place possible. I was there to be punished. But then once I had a paradigm shift and I had a different perspective of my environment and my situation, that's when I started to elevate and excel and do well in prison and look at my situation as an opportunity to better myself, as a school of learning and transforming and changing, because I had the time to do so. So in that book, it talks about the paradigm shift. That's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And then the other book is A Man's Search for Meaning. That's by Viktor Frankl.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, man, that book right there, it really also transformed my life, because here it is, a Jew in a concentration camp where he realized that he still had a choice despite, the horrific circumstance that him and his family and friends found themselves in. So for me, it helped me to realize, okay, no matter what, I still have a choice under these conditions. And it also helped me to put my situation in perspective, like it always could be worse, such as his case was in that book. And then the other one, it would be 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. Mm-hmm. And that's a very powerful book. It helped me to really get an understanding of the different manipulative tricks and games that not only the correctional staff, but my fellow inmates would do, and to really see it coming at me before it, tripped me up. But I also learned a lot about myself reading 48 Laws of Power, where I had also used some of those, what they call laws in the book. So yeah, those are just a few books that I would say if someone wanted to really look at themselves and try to grab something from a book to change their lives and their perspective, those are just a few. There's many more.
Yeah, and it's really hard without reading Tony's book, it's hard to understand just how far he's come. Like it's one thing to hear, you're a convicted felon, you spent 26 years in jail, but it's another thing in your book. You describe like blow by blow all of the things you endured and all of the bad choices you made one after another. So it really, it's amazing, Tony, that you turned yourself around. It's really commendable.
Yeah, I had to do that. Yeah.
Why is that? Why do you feel, what triggered the moment that you had to change?
What triggered the moment I had to change was a letter that I got from my brother.
I figured that was it. Yeah.
Yeah. He wrote me a letter, Ben, and he told my brother, we grew up in the same environment under the same conditions, and he's never had a criminal offense or criminal record. He's been all over the world modeling, doing some great, great, fantastic things, lives in New York City, but he's never been to prison, never been to jail. And he wrote me a letter while I was sitting in that prison cell, and it said, I love Tony, but I hate Boom Boom. And it dawned on me what that meant was that there was a duality. There was two persons in me. One was a destructive, criminal, angry, bitter, traumatic like person, and then the other was this kid that was still trapped on the inside from everything that he had endured, but had some really great things going for him. He was very smart, very intellectual, a good, kind person. But I just had to figure out which one was I going to feed the most. Was I going to feed Boom Boom or was I going to feed Tony? And at this moment in my life, that letter triggered me that, okay, it's time for Boom Boom to die off and for me to feed Tony and give him the strength to live on.
Yeah, and you describe in the book that you felt like, because there were a couple times previously in your life where you were trying to walk the straight and narrow, sort of felt like you'd turn your life around, but then you were in prison, got out, and thought you were gonna lead a law-abiding life, but then you would fall back into it. And you described it as you being you felt like you were addicted to the adrenaline rush of selling drugs and cars and women, right, and drugs and everything else. Yeah. So, and that resonated with me because it's come up a lot over the years that chess seems to attract addictive personalities. And you hadn't really described for all of your, for all of the troubles you hadn't described any other addictions. So I'm curious if in your own, in a way you're widely traveled, just because obviously you spend most of your life in Kansas and California, but you've met, hugely successful people and people who've committed terrible acts. So I'm curious if you've also noticed that there's this strain of chess that attracts addictive personalities.
Yeah, man, it's I never really looked at it like that. But as you said it, and I'm just going through the Rolodex of people in my mind, it's like, and including myself, I think that's what really attracted, it's kind of funny because I can say that, yeah, that's what attracted me and it kept me going. But also it was something where I found a safe haven then.
Yeah.
For me personally, it was a safe haven. I can go inside of a game of chess and it's like I go inside of a different world. And nothing else matters. I'm at peace. I'm comfortable. I'm safe. And all that matters is me and my opponent. And it's just so much fun when it's going on. And you're going through this range of emotions in the midst of it. And it's like you have tunnel vision for me. Yeah. And that was a safe place because everything else that was going on around me was just traumatic. It was not good. And so I guess you could say I got addicted to just escaping my reality.
Yeah, understandably. You had a lot to escape from. And you wrote in the book, Tony, that you said being good at chess actually gained you respect in prison. Here, here on the outside, there's certain stereotypes associated with chess, some good, some bad. But I was a bit surprised that you felt like it gained you sort of cultural currency in jail. Why do you think that is?
Naturally, people equate chess with high-level intellect, being academically sound, smart, respectful, courteous, kind. People look at chess players as that. Those things are just named. And so while I was in prison, the staff would even respect me. And I saw that. I noticed that my third eye or just my discernment was like, okay, they're respecting me because they see that, I spend a lot of my time playing chess, and now I have to make sure that my behavior models after, what they see and what they believe in me. And so that's what I continued on with. I didn't want to lead a contradicting type lifestyle. They look at me as smart, as intellectual, respectful, because I played the game of chess. But also my peers, the other fellow inmates, they look at chess players as smart people, man, people who are respected. It's sad to say, but there are a lot of smart people in jails and prison. But for the most part, I guess there's a stigma where they're looked upon as they're not, mm-hmm. They're not smart people, including myself at one time, I was a dummy or I was stupid for making my choices. I was impulsive and, I was an addictive drug addict or whatever. But chess changed that reputation.
That's amazing to hear. And now you're involved in trying to get more and more people in jail playing chess, trying to spread love for the game and, utilize the power that you believe that it has. And you wrote in the book about, I wasn't totally clear if it's like an app or a program, but Idovo, which exposes a lot of prisoners to chess. Could you explain what that is?
Yeah, so the Idovo was asked from different inmates about a chess program that they can put together, and they was getting a lot of questions. And Idovo heard about the gift of chess and what we were doing in the state of Kansas with using chess as a cognitive rehabilitation tool in our prison systems. And they reached out to us at the gift of chess, and we started having a conversation. And before too long, they offered an opportunity for me to create some videos. Also, for us to partner with a friend of ours, what is
Agamater?
Yeah, Antonio
Radich.
Radich, yeah. So he was kind enough to give us these videos to where I would come in and I would say, "Hi, my name is Tony Ballard with the Gift of Chess. Today we're going to show you a video with whoever was playing against one another, and then hope you enjoy, and we'll show one of the videos that he's created." But yeah, and so now people all over the prison system and this is 1 million inmates. 1 million inmates nationwide see our videos, and they're highly invested and interested in wanting to learn the game of chess. They write me several letters saying, "Hey, chess has really impacted my life. Chess has changed my life." I had one person said he had overdosed on fentanyl, and one of the things that he did to help get his mind back in clarity was to play chess. And there's so many testimonial letters that I received from people who've been impacted by the videos and by the game of chess.
That's great to hear. Yeah. So this is like basically an app on a tablet. Is that right? I mean, obviously everyone listening is familiar with Agamater, but how do they actually access?
So Idovo is an app on a tablet. And what they do, they not only upload chess videos, but they upload all educational material that could be beneficial for the inmate population to use to better their lives.
That's
Whether
great.
it be books, it can be an ebook. They just uploaded my book, Time Alone, From Isolation to Transformation, as an ebook. So 1 million residents of correctional facilities nationwide will read that. They also have other educational material. But what they do is they upload this material onto a secure device that all the inmates have. And it's just like an iPad or a tablet. And they just click on it, touch screen, and they start viewing videos. And at the end of each video, there's a short course or curriculum that they have to do a test. And after completion of these tests, they win points. And then they're able to utilize those points to watch a movie, listen to music, or some fun activity on there, or even play a chess game.
Okay. Yeah, I've been playing a game with a gentleman who's in jail, in actually many games in California. Shout out to Josh if you ever hear this. But I think he got turned on to chess through Idovo, and his mom reached out to me, and now we play through this app called Getting Out and like just share our moves, and we've gotten to be friendly. And it's amazing. And I've gotten a lot of perspective of the appreciation that a lot of people on the inside have for chess from you, but I've also gotten it from Josh, and it's harrowing at times because he's a very upbeat guy like you, trying to turn his life around. But then at times he'll say things like, there was a big fight in prison and we're on lockdown, and like, sorry, I couldn't move for a week. They took our tablets away. Like stuff like that happens all the time. It's really encourages those of us living free to count our blessings.
I want to say that we've also uploaded I think it's 189 that we did together, our last
episode. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he heard it. Yeah. I believe that was part of the origin story for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is awesome. And we had a question from a listener of the podcast, from Nahul Marisi. Thanks for helping us support Perpetual Chess, Nahul. He writes in and says, in school, I played chess in prisons, usually in teams where students and prisoners were mixed. Only a small fractions of prisoners choose to do educational activities, chess or otherwise. The challenge was to convince the rest that developing such skills could help with reintegrating them into society. How can prisoners be encouraged to invest time and effort into activities like chess? What do you think?
Okay. So you encourage them to get involved in activities like chess by having an incentive, not only having an incentive, but so a lot of inmates that when we go to there to have chess tournaments and chess games, the majority of them want to play who are serving max custody time. Max custody time is those who are in their cell locked down maybe 23 hours a day, unless they work a job and unless they go to the gym or even go to chow hall, they're in their cell. And so when we come to that facility to play a chess tournament, all of them are out of their cells. They can't wait to get there. They're having a fun time because they get an opportunity to get out of their cells. But when we go to a minimum custody facility, very few inmates want to participate because there's so many different other activities that they can be doing. They can be working a job. They can be doing anything they want to do. So to encourage them to participate in a program where it's changing their lives, I think there needs to be an incentive such as good time restoration, which is something that I worked hard on myself in the gift of chess here in the state of Kansas, is to create a program that has positive transformation results where at the end of the 6-month program, they will receive up to 15 to 30 days off of their sentence.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And how is that generally received? Is it a hard sell?
It is a hard sell because the correctional facilities are looking for programs that are evidence-based. And so if we're going to sell this chess program that we know as chess players helps you in all these many different ways, we need to provide the evidence that shows that our program is evidence-based and that this program is proven to work to improve decision-making, overcome impulsiveness, to improve goal setting, focus, all those positive things that come from the game of chess. And then we can promote it as an opportunity for an incentive such as good time restoration, where if they complete the program, they get 30 days knocked off their sentence. They already do that for like GD, a food service job, if they work in a food service job, for different programs that are already evidence-based.
Yeah, it's tough. That becomes an issue often when people are trying to establish chess curriculums as well. And the problem, I think, is not necessarily that if the studies weren't conducted, that the evidence wouldn't be there. I think the evidence would be there. You know, it might not be the most robust effect in the world if you're trying to measure it statistically, but if it's having a strong impact on a small percentage of people, you know, that in itself can really make a large difference in society. But the problem is studies like that never get funded, you know, so it's kind of like a catch.
Right. We at the Gift of Chess were the first ones to really explore this idea of using chess as a cognitive rehabilitation tool in correctional systems nationwide, where we believe that it helps those that are suffering from impulsive behavior, violent behavior, bad choice in decision making. But we believe that it can make a person better. I really account a lot of my choices in decision making and remove myself from impulsive behavior from the game of chess. Yeah. So I'm a living example. So we just need that curriculum to be created, and then to have a prison to really pilot this program, say for a year, 2 years, and then also to have that data that was supported. We brought in someone from the University of California, Berkeley to help collect the data at Kansas Department of Corrections. And you may know her, Yuanga Biyamba. She helped us to give out surveys and try to collect some data, but it didn't go very far. But we were knocking at the door of really trying to, you know, prove that, hey, chess does work. Yeah.
And now you've got your new nonprofit, From Masters to Mentors. What is the mission of From Masters to Mentors?
So the mission then for Masters and Mentors is to use the evidence-based curriculum, just like we're talking about. But this evidence-based curriculum comes from the University of Cincinnati Correctional Institute. And this curriculum deals with goal setting, addressing criminogenic behaviors, as well as program planning and decision-making and choices. So it is an evidence-based curriculum because it's been used in other correctional settings. It helps deal with coping strategies, different antisocial behaviors that youth have The curriculum will address that. And we would have that part of the portion of Masters and Mentors program 1 day a week. And then the second day a week, we will actually have the game of chess, where we play the game of chess. We teach them about their choices and decision making, help them to understand what they're really doing when they're looking at a knight, whether they should trade it for a rook or not, which is weighing pros and cons. We bring them into instead of these kids being antisocial, they're being a socially inclusive environment. We'll celebrate them. So it's a 2 day a week program, evidence-based curriculum. And then on the other day, it'd be chess. And then at the end of the program, we culminated with a chess tournament where we give them free United States Chess Federation memberships. They compete in a tournament. They have family and friends surrounding them, and they get awards, first, second, third, fourth prize. And then they also graduate. The other component is that they get mentoring from me, from my lived experience, and from others who volunteer to be a part of our program. They come alongside us. They mentor these kids because we're dealing with at-risk youth and justice-involved youth. So we're already dealing with youth who are in the correctional facilities, juvenile facilities, and we're dealing with at-risk youth who are on the verge of being in those juvenile or correctional facilities. And so we use our lived experience to mentor them and tell them, hey, I've been there, done that. It's not the way to go. Just think before you act, which is what chess teaches everybody to do.
That's a broad vision, man. That's admirable.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I guess what's that?
It works.
Yeah.
It works. I'm going to prove an example. It works. That curriculum that I'm talking about is what we're now raising funds for. It's a very highly touted evidence-based curriculum. It goes upwards in the range of $12,000 for this curriculum, but they come out and they teach our entire staff on how to properly teach this curriculum to the youth, because you have to give it in certain doses. If they're mild or moderate risk youth, you may meet with them less often than you would a high risk youth. So you give the high risk youth a stronger dosage of the curriculum, meaning you meet with them more, you counsel them more, they have more one-on-ones. But, it works because chess is a hack. When I say hack, it's because while they're having fun playing games, they're also developing the habit of thinking. And then they unconsciously start using these thinking skills in other areas of their lives.
And how's the fundraising going so far?
So far, we've raised about a fourth of what we're looking for. We're looking to get closer to that goal, but we need to get the word out that we need this type of help, this type of funding to purchase this curriculum, which would set us far and above any other youth service provider here in the community. There's a lot of youth service providers here in the city of Wichita that are doing good work, but our chess program with this evidence-based curriculum will be unique and so different from all the rest.
And given your history, Tony, obviously as a convicted felon, do you get any pushback from people in your desire to work with youth? I mean, obviously it is at-risk youth, but I'm just curious.
No, I really don't. I don't, man. Like today, I just spoke to a group of people who have a youth service provider, nonprofit organization, and they always ask me to come speak, come give a word of encouragement, of inspiration, tell them what my story has done and how they can learn from it and not commit the same, crimes or acts and hurt themselves. But I've been strongly supported, man. If I could say there was one place where I got pushback, that was from the Kansas Department of Corrections. Because when I very first started working for the Gift of Chess, I was still in custody of Kansas Department of Corrections. But as the Gift of Chess became known in the city of Wichita and in the state of Kansas and what we're doing, so many schools and elementary schools and children homes wanted to reach out to me or the Gift of Chess and work with us. But the Kansas Department of Corrections, because I was still incarcerated, would not allow me to work with them, And so now that I'm not there, now I can work with these youth in here in the community, and they support me 100%. It's a blessing.
That's great to hear. And you mentioned in your interview with Devon Croxton of U.S. Chess that, you pursued your barber's license and you're working for Paul Mitchell right now, but your dream is to work with your nonprofit full time or to work in chess full time?
Yeah, that's what be my full time. This is my passion. This is what feeds my soul, Ben. I would love to run across that perfect grant, that perfect funding that would pay my salary to work in the community. This is where lives are really impacted. And then on the side, I can do the barbering and I can help out there. But 9 to 5, this right here, working with masters and mentors, at-risk youth, justice involved youth, teaching these kids, the consequences of the choices and actions, and then giving them some tools through that evidence-based curriculum to work with is where I find the most impactful work here.
Obviously, yeah, that makes sense. And as a starting point, you have a GoFundMe, right?
Yes. GoFundMe, Masters and Mentors, Youth Enrichment Strategies.org.
Okay, yeah, and I'll link to that, and I'm going to make a donation when we finish up this interview. But let me ask you, Tony, I got some fun stories I want to get out of you, one or two.
Yeah,
Number one, we got to get to this very important story of how Perpetual Chess helped you win over your girlfriend.
Man, hey Ben, thank you once again.
I like that you're very generous with the credit, Tony. You turned your whole life around, and you're like, it's because of chess. I got my girlfriend because of this podcast. Nothing to do with you, right?
Oh my goodness, hey, it's just been a blessing, Ben. It's real talk though, man. So I met this beautiful Latina, and we start talking, and she was very like standoffish. She didn't want to, give me too much, inside action with really getting to know her, but she was interested in wanting to know me. And so I said, there's some things on the internet that you can find out about me. And one of them is the Ben Johnson podcast. If you just want to, listen to that. And she did. So she listened to it, the entire podcast on her lunch break, and it inspired her so much. I'm not kidding you, man. I got in there real good because of that podcast. And even to this day, when she tells her friends or, her colleagues at work, because she's turned them onto the podcast too, because they wanted to get to know me too. And so they listened to the podcast. But yeah, it was that podcast where she listened to me and she found out so much about me. And she said she was really inspired. Not only that, there was other people who she knew, and she began to tell that, she was talking to a guy who's, incarcerated and he's about to get out. And they really wasn't all for that. Of course, they're friends and they're trying to look out for her best interest. But she even told them, if you just knew what all he was doing and how he's changed his life around, here, just listen to this podcast and you'll see, So, yeah, thanks, Ben, for the opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I'm to what little influence I have, I'm just an amplifier. It's you, it's your story, it's your words, and it's incredible, and it's only the beginning. So I can't wait to see your continued evolution in the coming years. But before we go, Tony, a couple more stories. Number one, you did mention being a fan of the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I'm curious if that played a role in the story you told about your short-lived interest in golf that maybe you could share with our listeners.
No, so my interest in golf, it came only because I was working a job in prison where I wasn't getting a lot of hours and I wasn't working. And so the guy that was in charge of the hours, the supervisor, he loved golf and he was an avid golf player. So I would just go back to the cell house and I began reading golf magazines, watching golf on TV, learning the verbiage, learning what, a hole-in-one, eagle, all of these things is, the back nine, the different trophies, the claret jug, all these different things about golf, who the players were. And so I would go to work and I would talk golf to him. I would talk golf to him just to get in, man. And before too long, me and this supervisor, he was coming over to me and we would play fantasy golf together. He picked good 3 players, I picked 3 players, and before too long, I was working a full 40-hour work week all the time because I spoke his language.
That's great. Yeah, I've never gotten into golf, but I do feel a kinship with like golf people because they're just as obsessive as chess people. So okay, I'm like, in a parallel universe, that could be me. It's not, but it could be. I had a couple more questions. I'm just curious on a personal level, Tony. I mean, it's obviously you did, you were in sort of a partial prison last time we talked. So getting out must not be a total culture shock, but nonetheless, I couldn't help but wonder like what the best part of being fully free is, and if there's anything you actually miss from being on the inside.
Yes. Best part for me about being totally free is that I get to sit in my apartment with my couch, my plants, my 65-inch television screen, my own bed, and it's just quiet.
Yeah.
It's just really quiet, and I don't have to hear people yelling or, you know, uh, guards talking on their walkie-talkies, or there's no announcements being made over the intercom. You know, Jenkins, cell 252, report to the officer station. I don't have to hear any of that. Last night I went to sleep with my window open and the rain was just dropping down on my windowsill outside, and it was just so relaxing. And it was darkness. Whereas in prison, it's never dark. There's always a night light on so that the guards can come by and check your body and make sure you're still alive. It's never dark in there. And so that's the best thing for me, is to just have my own place and to be alone and to be in this quietness and peace and solitude. And it's my own, it's my own. I pay the bills, no one's going to kick me out. So unless I don't pay the bills, And then I would say one of the things that I do miss, but I wouldn't trade nothing for the world, I wouldn't go back, is you had so much time in there.
Mm-hmm.
So much time. Out here, my days go by like a blur, and I don't get half of the things done that I need to get done. While I was in prison, I had so much time then. I mean, playing chess.
Yeah.
I play chess every day, and I would study for an hour games, And here it is. I miss playing chess every day.
Yeah.
I miss, those players that I could play at random. Hey, you want to play a chess game? Yeah, let's bust them out. We sit down, we play chess for hours. I don't have that luxury of time anymore. And I knew that I wouldn't once I got out here. That's why I took care of the things that needed to be taken care of first and foremost while I was there, which was my character and my behavior, understanding myself, getting to know myself. James Allen wrote a book, Know Thyself. And so that was something that I needed. I needed to know myself, and I had nothing but time to do that while I was incarcerated.
And you made the most of it.
Yeah, there's so many distractions out here, man.
Yeah.
And it's not bad, but it's just life. It is what it is.
Yeah. And one thing I wanted to ask you, Tony, like, again, I knew from our prior conversation that you'd been in jail, and obviously I knew that you committed some crimes to end up there. But I didn't realize, like, in your drug dealing days, you had a lot of money at times, living a very fast lifestyle. Is it hard to adjust to sort of the simple life? Do you get tempted to go back, or do you feel like because as we discussed earlier, you did have a couple times before where you went back, or do you feel like you fully moved past it at this point?
Then the pain was so great of living that fast lifestyle. I'm talking about the pain was so great. It was immense. And I made mention of in my book that I attempted suicide.
Yeah.
That's how immense the pain was for me going back and trying to live that I will never go back to that. I don't miss none of it. I would be in a homeless shelter eating, scraps off of before I go back to prison. And I mean that, man, because there's so much more things that I can find peace in outside of here than I could in there. So I don't miss any of that. I'm thankful for having to go through 20 plus years of that in there, 26 total, because it taught me to be grateful for the small things. I don't need a whole lot. I got by with the bare minimum. And so the little twos and fews that I have in my life right now, I'm blessed to have. That's more than enough.
And you've learned that through your experience, but I'm sure in some of your interactions with at-risk youth, they're still young and naive and pursuing materialistic, hedonistic things. So, like, how can you impart that when you're coming from a place of life experience and you're just trying to tell them? Like, how does that go?
So first you got to tell them, and then you have to show them, and then you have to live it out before them. And one of the things that you have to really be skilled at with these youth today is being able to show them the joys in life that are priceless. You don't have to pay a lot of money for in order to receive, like the love and support you get from your family, friends, your football coach, your teachers, neighbors. And then the small things, your outings, the experiences, give them life experiences. Those are priceless. People always want to go out and want to buy a brand new pair of Jordans or buy a brand new ball cap for their son. Instead, go ahead and give them an experience, something that you can't place a price tag on. You don't have to pay for a good fishing experience. Man, I went fishing with my dad, or we went and we shot hoops or somewhere. Just give them an experience that they don't have to put a price tag on, and then they don't be having to chase, the dollars and the money. They're enjoying their family, friends, and they don't want to leave that. And I know that firsthand because that's what I miss more than anything is having family, friends, and loved ones. Those are the things that matters most. Once you teach them that and you show them that, they don't want to be away from that. They don't want to be far from that.
And what if they don't
jail
feel
is
like
a hard place?
But what if they feel like they don't have anyone?
Yeah, and that's the hard part, because some kids, you can be there for them and you can show them and you can help build a support system around them, and they still feel like they don't have anyone, but you still have to be there for them. You still have to love on them. You still have to support them, because that's what someone did for me. When I was still making those bad choices and bad decisions, there was still someone saying, I believe in you, I believe in you, I believe in you. But at the end of the day, it had to be Tony to sit there and decide that, okay, I want something different for myself. You're going to have kids like that are just hard-headed and that are just, stubborn and they don't want to get out of their own way. But you just still have to love on them and show them that I'm going to be here for you. You're going to have to live with the consequences of your behavior. But behind all of that, I'm still going to be here to support you.
That's great. And last but not least, Tony, I thought the closing of your book was very powerful. You gave some really good advice for anyone facing any adversity, anyone feeling like they have problems in their lives. What would you, and that's all of us really. I mean, it resonated with me, and I have a great life, but it still landed with me. So what advice do you give to people who feel like they're struggling or feel like they are facing some obstacle that they can't get past?
That it will get better, that the obstacle, the challenge, the adversity that you're facing today is not meant to destroy you. It's not meant to make you bitter. It's meant to make you better. You just have to keep moving, keep going. And when you can't do it by yourself, which most of the time we can't, find someone to carry you the rest of the way. And then on the flip side of that is when you come through that storm, you come through that adversity, challenge, you're going to be that much more stronger. You have to believe in that this is temporary, that this too shall pass, and you're going to get through this. And you're going to come out of it like I did. I felt like I came out of it shining like gold, man. No one has ever exited the Kansas Department of Corrections the way that I did. They may have, but with the lights and the cameras, the documentary, all the things that I've done, I didn't see that. But these are the things that I was rewarded with because I persevered. I kept going forward. And there is a reward for those who persevere and keep moving forward.
And you write in the book, if you can do it, then we can do it.
Yes. Yeah. And, it's just like that pawn. I tell all the inmates in prison, man, take a lesson from the pawn. Keep moving forward. It's the only piece on the board that can't go backwards. Keep moving forward. You get on the other side of the board, you promote. And that's where I am now. I made it to the other side of the board.
Amazing. Well, congratulations, Tony. And you mentioned a documentary. I haven't come across it. Is it available yet?
It's not available yet. They're still editing it. They're still having a distributor that they want to find. But the movie or the documentary, I believe, is called All the Right Moves. It's a chess documentary by Tinker Tailor Productions and Lulu Films.
Okay. So we'll keep an eye out for that. Support masters and mentors if you can. And if anyone wants to reach out, connect with you personally, you're on Instagram, Tony. Any other good way for listeners to reach you?
Yeah. So you can find me on Facebook, Tony Ballard, and also at Masters and Mentors Facebook page. And then also mastersandmentors.org. That's our website. And then also you can find me on LinkedIn under Tony Ballard. So yeah, those places right there. Tony Ballard 1977 is my Instagram handle.
All right, you'll definitely, you might not get any donations, but you'll get some people playing chess with you. I promise you that.
Yeah.
We'll get at least one donation.
Yeah.
But,
Tony in 1B, and then on Lee Chess is Tony Ballard 1977.
okay, I'm going to link to all those so listeners, you don't have to, crash your cars trying to write this stuff down. It'll be in the show notes. And Tony, again, is an amazing story, and it's just getting started. So keep up the incredible work.
Ben, thank you so much for having me, and it's been a blessing to know you. And thank you for always accepting my call and picking it up and talking to me throughout these years since our very first podcast episode.
You're an inspiration, Tony. Take care.